Right then, Forest faithful, buckle up. Because what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your very core. The city ground is absolutely buzzing right now, and not in the way we'd hoped. Something massive is happening behind those famous walls. And frankly, it's got everyone talking. We're talking about 5 stories that have emerged in the last 72 hours. 5 revelations that could completely reshape our beloved club's immediate future. And trust me when I say this, some of these will leave you speechless. First up, there's our manager, the Portuguese tactician who brought us European football. Well, let's just say his relationship with the big boss has taken a dramatic turn. The fallout is real, it's messy, and sources are saying it could all come to a head very, very soon. Then we've got transfer chaos. That goalkeeper we've been chasing? The one who was supposed to solve our problems between the sticks? Well, there's been a massive stumbling block that nobody saw coming. Financial complications that have left everyone scratching their heads. But wait, there's more. That $30 million winger we thought was nearing completion. The French talent who could transform our attack. The latest update will absolutely floor you. The numbers involved are staggering, and the response from abroad has been, shall we say, less than accommodating. And if you think that's dramatic, wait until you hear about the managerial merry-go-round that's potentially brewing. 2 massive names, 2 completely different philosophies, both being whispered in corridors as potential solutions to our current predicament. Here's what I want to know from you lot. When everything seems to be falling apart, do you trust the process? Do you believe in Marinakis' vision? Or are you starting to worry that we're heading for another period of instability? Look, before we dive into the first bombshell, smash that like button right now, and I mean it. Because what's coming next is going to test every single one of your emotions as a Forest fan. Drop a comment and tell me, are you ready for this roller coaster? Because the first revelation about our manager's future is going to change everything you thought you knew about what's happening at our club right now. He's been our beacon of hope. The man who dragged us back from the championship wilderness and delivered European nights we'd only dreamed of. But something has gone seriously wrong behind the scenes, and what's emerged over the weekend is nothing short of extraordinary. I'm talking about Nuno Espirito Santo. And what's happened between him and Evangelos Marinakis is sending shockwaves through the entire football world. It all started on Friday morning when reports began circulating that Nuno's position was under serious threat. Not just speculation, mind you. Proper credible sources suggesting that our Portuguese mastermind was facing the very real possibility of being shown the door. The man who secured our Premier League survival, who guided us to 7th place, who brought Champions League football back to the city ground, suddenly finding himself in the firing line. But here's where it gets really interesting. In what can only be described as a fiery press conference, Nuno himself admitted that his relationship with Marinakis had changed and that they are not as close as they once were. Can you imagine the manager publicly acknowledging a rift with the owner? In modern football, that's practically unheard of. The root of this extraordinary fallout? Transfer policy. Despite bringing in 8 new players this summer, including Dan Ndoye, James McAtee, Omari Hutchinson, Arnold Kalimuendo, and Douglas Luiz, Nuno clearly wanted more. Sources suggest he was pushing for another goalkeeper and 2 full-backs to properly strengthen the squad for our European campaign. But somewhere in those negotiations, something went badly wrong. What makes this even more dramatic is the timing. We're competing in the Europa League, we finished 7th last season, and by all accounts we should be building on success. Instead, we're witnessing what appears to be a complete breakdown in trust between the 2 most important figures at our club. The uncertainty has now spread to the playing squad, according to BBC Sports sources. Imagine that. The players who should be focusing on our upcoming fixtures are instead wondering whether their manager will still be there next week. Gary Neville weighed in, saying, "Who'd have thought this situation would develop so quickly?" Here's the thing that really gets me. Nuno took us from championship strugglers to European competitors in just over 2 years. His tactical acumen, his ability to get the best out of players like Morgan Gibbs-White and Anthony Elanga, his understanding of what Forest means to this city, all of that could be thrown away because of disagreements over transfer strategy. Some reports even suggested he could be gone before Sunday's match against Crystal Palace. Well, he survived that fixture. We drew 1-1, but the speculation continues to swirl. The fact that respected journalists are reporting on his job security tells you everything about how serious this situation has become. What do you make of this mess? Do you back Nuno, the man who delivered our dreams? Or do you trust Marinakis to make the right call for the long-term future of our club? Comment below and let me know where you stand, because this is far from over. And if you think the managerial drama is intense, wait until you hear about the transfer chaos that's been unfolding simultaneously. While the managerial soap opera plays out in public, there's been another crushing blow happening behind closed doors. One that involves a player we've been chasing for months, a deal that seemed almost certain, and a stumbling block that nobody saw coming. We're talking about a goalkeeper who's represented his country at the World Cup, who's proven himself in European competition, and who was supposed to be the answer to our goalkeeping questions. But now, well, it's all gone horribly wrong. I'm talking about Dominik Livakovic from Fenerbahce. And the latest developments will leave you absolutely stunned. Picture this. We've been tracking the Croatian international for months. Ever since Carlos Miguel departed and we brought in Angus Gunn on loan, everyone knew we needed another top quality keeper to challenge Marcels, especially with European football on our agenda. Livakovic seemed perfect, Premier League ready, experienced at the highest level, and allegedly keen on the move to the city ground. According to sources close to the deal, the player himself was willing to make the switch. Can you imagine a World Cup goalkeeper, someone who starred in the Champions League, actually wanting to join our project? That's how far we've come under this ownership. That's the pulling power we now have. But here's where it gets frustrating. The deal has hit a massive financial roadblock. Reports suggest that while Fenerbahce are open to letting him go, there's been a brutal impasse over salary arrangements. Not the transfer fee, mind you, but the actual wage structure and how costs would be shared between the clubs. This is particularly galling when you consider our European ambitions. CL's has been solid, absolutely no complaints there, but competing in the Europa League demands squad depth. One injury, one suspension, one loss of form, and suddenly you're relying on loan signings in crucial fixtures that could define your entire season. The timing couldn't be worse either. We're less than a week from the transfer deadline, Nuno's future is uncertain, and now our goalkeeping reinforcement, something that seemed like a done deal, is stuck in bureaucratic nonsense. It's like watching your dreams crumble in slow motion. What makes this even more frustrating is our recent transfer history. We managed to get Douglas Luiz over the line, we secured promising talents like McAtee and Hutchinson, we've shown we can compete financially when needed. But somehow, this Livakovic deal, which should have been straightforward, has become a nightmare. There's also the Jose Angel Carmona situation to consider. We had an agreement with Getafe for their full-back, everything was set, and then the player himself said no to the move. Another potential signing, another disappointment, another reminder that for all our progress, we're still not the automatic first choice for every player we target. Sources suggest that Livakovic has been on our radar since last summer. 12 months of scouting, 12 months of planning, 12 months of believing we'd found our man. And now, with days left in the window, we're watching it slip away because of salary negotiations. Here's what I want to know from you. Are these the growing pains of a club on the rise, or are we seeing signs that our transfer strategy needs serious work? Should we be looking at different targets, or do we stick with our guns and try to get this Livakovic deal back on track? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because honestly, this goalkeeper situation could define how our entire European campaign unfolds. And speaking of transfers that haven't gone to plan, wait until you hear about our pursuit of a certain French winger. Just when you thought our transfer window couldn't get any more complicated, along comes a story that perfectly encapsulates the frustration every Forest fan is feeling right now. We're talking about a player who could have transformed our attacking options, a fee that would have broken club records, and a rejection that has left everyone asking serious questions. The target? A 22-year-old French forward who's been setting League One alight. The offer? A staggering sum that would have shown the football world we mean business. The outcome? Well, let's just say it wasn't what anyone expected. I'm talking about Adlane Bakwa from Strasbourg, and what happened with our $30.2 million bid will absolutely blow your mind. Here's the thing about Bakwa that makes this rejection so painful. This isn't some unproven youngster we're talking about. Since joining Strasbourg from Bordeaux in 2023, he's registered 11 goals and 20 assists in 69 appearances. Those are serious numbers for a player who can operate on the wing or up front. Exactly the kind of versatility Nuno has been crying out for. The France under-21 international was reportedly keen on the move. Can you believe that? In a summer where we've struggled to convince some targets to join us, here was a genuine talent who actually wanted to come to the City Ground. He could see the project, he could see the European football, he could see the potential for growth. So we put together what any reasonable person would consider a massive offer. $23.7 million up front, plus another $6.5 million in add-ons. That's $30.2 million for a 22-year-old. Just pause and think about that for a moment. 5 years ago, we were struggling in the championship. Now we're throwing around $30 million bids like it's nothing. But here's where it gets absolutely maddening. Strasbourg said no. Not just no, but they want an initial fee of at least $30 million before any add-ons are even discussed. They're essentially asking for nearly $37 million total for a player who, while talented, has never played Premier League football. What makes this even more frustrating is the ownership situation. Strasbourg are owned by Blueco, the same group that owns Chelsea. So we're essentially negotiating with a company that has infinite resources, dealing with people who see $30 million as pocket change. For them, holding out for every last penny isn't about the money, it's about principle. The irony is delicious, isn't it? We finally have the financial muscle to compete for top talent. We identify the right player, he wants to come, and we're still getting knocked back because other clubs can simply afford to be difficult. It's a perfect example of how the football food chain still works, even when you think you've climbed a few rungs. BBC Sports' Nizar Kinsella reports that Leeds and Sunderland have also shown interest, though presumably with much smaller offers. The fact that championship clubs are even in the conversation tells you something about how this negotiation has unfolded. What's particularly galling is the timing. We're dealing with uncertainty around Nuno, we're struggling to get the Livakovic deal done, and now our big attacking signing, the one that was supposed to show we're serious about competing in Europe, is stuck because of a few £1 million in structuring. And here's the kicker. Bakwa has been used as a substitute in all 3 of Strasbourg's matches this season. A substitute. We're offering $30+ million for a player who can't even get into their starting 11 consistently. Either they rate him higher than his current role suggests, or they're taking the absolute piss. This is modern football in a nutshell, isn't it? Even when you have the money, even when the player wants to come, even when you're offering ridiculous sums, someone else can always price you out just because they can. What's your take on this? Should we have gone higher? Should we be looking at different targets? Or is this just the reality of trying to compete at the top level? Let me know in the comments, because our transfer saga is far from over. And speaking of potential solutions to our current problems, wait until you hear about the managerial names being thrown around. Right, so we've covered the crisis with our current manager, the transfer frustrations, and the financial roadblocks. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. Because while all this chaos unfolds, there are whispers, serious whispers, about who might be waiting in the wings. We're talking about a manager with Premier League pedigree, someone who's won titles, someone who understands the pressures of managing a big club with European ambitions. And according to The Sun, this man is at the very top of our shortlist should the unthinkable happen with Nuno. I'm talking about Brendan Rodgers from Celtic, and the fact that he's apparently our #1 target tells you everything about the ambition levels at this football club. Now, let's be clear about what we're discussing here. Rodgers isn't some desperate manager looking for his next job. He's currently in charge of Celtic, one of the biggest clubs in world football, where he's already won multiple Scottish titles and is competing in European competition. The man doesn't need Nottingham Forest, which makes the speculation even more intriguing. Think about his credentials for a moment. This is the manager who took Leicester City to an FA Cup triumph, who nearly won the Premier League with Liverpool, who's proven he can handle the pressure of managing clubs with massive expectations. His style of football, attacking, possession-based, entertaining, would fit perfectly with what Forest fans have come to expect. But here's what makes this potential appointment so fascinating. It would represent a complete shift in philosophy from Nuno's approach. Where the Portuguese prefer structure and defensive solidity, Rodgers is all about flair and attacking intent. Where Nuno has sometimes struggled with media relations, Rodgers is a master of the press conference. Two completely different managers for two completely different moments in our club's history. The timing of these reports is crucial too. They're not coming from nowhere. Respected journalists don't just randomly link high-profile managers with clubs unless there's substance behind it. The fact that Rodgers is being named specifically as our top target suggests there might have been exploratory conversations, or at least an assessment of his availability. From Rodgers' perspective, you can see the attraction. He's conquered Scotland multiple times with Celtic, but the Premier League remains the ultimate prize for any British or Irish manager. Forest would offer him European football, a passionate fan base, significant financial backing, and the chance to build something special in England's top flight. The challenge would be convincing him to leave Celtic mid-project. He's building something there, he's got European football, and Celtic remain one of the most prestigious clubs he could manage. But Premier League football, that's always going to be tempting for someone with his ambitions. What's interesting is how this potential appointment would be received by different sections of our fan base. Some would see it as a statement of intent, proof that we can attract top-level managers when needed. Others might worry about another period of transition, another new system to learn, another disruption to the progress we've made. The financial implications would be significant too. Rodgers wouldn't come cheap, and extracting him from Celtic would likely require compensation. But given the money we're already throwing around in the transfer market, that probably isn't the deciding factor. There's also the question of timing. If this move were to happen, would it be before the transfer window closes? Would Rodgers want to inherit the current squad, or would he demand his own signings? Would players like Gibbs, White, and Wood adapt to his more expansive style? These are the questions that keep you awake at night as a Forest fan. On one hand, you've got a manager who delivered European football but might be losing the dressing room. On the other, you've got a potential replacement with serious credentials but no guarantee of immediate success. Here's what I want to know from you. If Nuno goes, is Rodgers the right man to take us forward? Or are there other managers you prefer to see at the City Ground? Drop your thoughts below because this managerial situation is reaching boiling point. And if you think Rodgers would be an interesting appointment, wait until you hear about the other name being linked with our job. And so we reach the final piece of this absolutely mental puzzle. Just when you thought the managerial speculation couldn't get any more intriguing, along comes a name that nobody saw coming. We're talking about a veteran of the game, someone with Premier League winning experience, a tactician who spent decades at the highest level of world football. But here's the thing. This isn't just any manager being linked with a potential move to the City Ground. This is a story about timing, about opportunity, and about a 71-year-old maestro who might be ready for one final act in English football. I'm talking about Manuel Pellegrini, and the fact that he's apparently in our sights should tell you everything about how seriously this club is taking the current situation. Let's talk about what Pellegrini represents, because this isn't some random punt on an available manager. This is a man who won the Premier League with Manchester City in 2013-14, delivering beautiful, attacking football while competing against the very best. He's managed Real Madrid, he's won titles across different countries, he's handled superstars and developed young talent in equal measure. Currently at Real Betis, his contract runs until 2026. But here's where it gets interesting. There are no signs of a renewal being discussed. After 5 seasons in Seville, implementing his philosophy and building something special, it seems like the natural end of a cycle is approaching. From Forest's perspective, you can see the appeal immediately. Pellegrini's style of play, expansive, possession-heavy, entertaining, would be perfect for our European ambitions. His experience managing in high-pressure situations would be invaluable. His calm demeanor and tactical flexibility would provide stability after what's been a turbulent few weeks. But this potential appointment raises fascinating questions about where we see ourselves as a football club. Pellegrini doesn't take jobs for the sake of it. He's incredibly selective about his moves, always choosing projects that align with his football philosophy and personal ambitions. The fact that we're even being discussed as a destination tells you something about the reputation Marinakis has built. The age factor will divide opinion, no doubt about it. At 71, Pellegrini would be one of the oldest managers in the Premier League. Some will see that as experience and wisdom. Others might worry about energy levels and long-term planning. But let's be honest, his recent work at Betis suggests he's lost none of his tactical sharpness. What's particularly intriguing is how different this appointment would be from the Rodgers option. Where Brendan represents youth, energy, and modern coaching methods, Pellegrini offers old-school wisdom, proven Premier League success, and the kind of gravitas that comes from decades at the top level. The financial aspect would be crucial too. Pellegrini commanded massive respect during his City days, and he wouldn't come cheap. But more importantly, he'd expect significant backing in the transfer market. His football philosophy requires specific types of players, and implementing his system would need investment. There's also the question of how our current squad would adapt. Players like Gibbs-White or McAtee would probably thrive under Pellegrini's attacking approach, but others might struggle with the tactical demands. It would certainly represent a more dramatic shift than keeping Nuno or even appointing Rodgers. The timing of these reports is crucial. European sources suggesting Forest interest, combined with uncertainty over his Betis future, creates the perfect storm for speculation. But speculation built on substance, this isn't random Twitter gossip. What fascinates me most is what this says about our ambitions. 5 years ago, the idea of Manuel Pellegrini even considering Nottingham Forest would have been laughable. Now, we're genuinely being mentioned as a potential destination for one of football's most respected figures. So here we are, Forest family, looking at a crossroads that could define the next 5 years of our journey. Do we stick with Nuno and hope the relationship with Marinakis can be repaired? Do we go for the energy and attacking football of Rodgers? Or do we make a statement by bringing in a world-class operator like Pellegrini? This whole saga tells us something profound about where we've come as a football club. European football, $30 million transfer bids, world-class managers wanting to work here. These aren't problems, they're privileges. But they're also pressures that demand the right decisions at crucial moments. What do you reckon then? Are you excited by these possibilities or worried about the uncertainty? Do you trust Marinakis to make the right call? Or are you concerned about disrupting the progress we've made? Smash that like button, drop your honest thoughts in the comments, and make sure you subscribe because this story is far from over. Tomorrow could bring news that changes everything we think we know about the future of our beloved club. And here's my promise to you. Whatever happens next, whatever decisions are made, I'll be here to break it down, analyze it, and give you the truth about what it means for Nottingham Forest. Because that's what we do. We stick together, we face the storms together, and we dream together. Until next time, keep the faith, Forest family. These might be uncertain times, but they're also the most exciting times to be associated with this football club. The city ground is buzzing, Europe awaits, and our story is just